What you are looking at is one of the most underappreciated and overlooked gems on the Wii. I'm not kidding here, folks. This has the makings to be a cult classic, and hopefully this review will convince you to be a part of it if you haven't already. But first, a very, very brief history lesson about the game. At Nintendo's 2008 fall announcement, Nintendo showed off a trailer for Sin and Punishment 2. It was the first time it was shown to the public. Some say that the sales of Sin and Punishment on the Wii's Virtual Console made this happen, and while there may be some truth to that, an often overlooked statement is that the developer Treasure was working on a completely different game for the Wii, and during development, they thought the game was becoming a lot like Sin and Punishment. Gameplay-wise, I can see that, but anything else? Nah. In fact, if it wasn't for this one little flashback, the game could have been written off as its own standalone series, and no one would be the wiser. If you don't believe me, then let's go over the story.
Look at you, giggling with the target you were sent here to kill.
Boy is sent to kill girl. Girl lost her memories. Boy and girl become curious of each other. No, not like that! Boy and girl become friends, and now the organization the boy worked for wants them both as coffin stuffers. That's the easy way to explain things. To explain the finer details of the plot would involve going into a complex explanation so convoluted that there's even less of a chance to understand it. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with religion in case you thought that was what the name of the game was implying. For example, why do they want the girl to become a corpse?
Kachi, you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm sure she's fine. She's impaled on a...
Of course.
Holy sensor bleep, she's a witch! Well, no she's not. She's an alien life form from outer space that took on the form of a human from inner space. They see her as a threat since inner space and outer space are at war with each other, while Issa sees her as a trusted companion. While the game explains some things like what keepers are, it doesn't explain a lot of what's going on and hopes that you'll fill in the completely vague answers by yourself or by reading the manual. Personally, I can grasp the idea of what's going on, but my biggest confusion comes from how drastic the story is from the last one and how they are supposed to be connected. Bottom line, you want to escape Earth 4 with your lives. That's right, I said Earth 4, because they made more Earths. Hey game trailers, timeline this series, I dare you!
And you're sure there are no enemies down here?
Positive. Why would enemies hang out in a water tunnel?
The gameplay is set in the style of a typical on-rails action shooter and is basically the same as its N64 predecessor. There are plenty of controls to choose from, but I highly suggest going with the control stick on the nunchuck and aiming with the Wii Remote. Already, this plays so much better than the previous entry, and it makes me glad that motion controls exist. Your laser gun never runs out of ammo, and when you tap the fire button again, you'll perform a melee attack. The melee move can cut through just about anything, including enemy fire, with more damage than your gun, and if someone shoots a missile, a grenade, or a rocket at you, you can use the melee move to send it to where your cursor is pointed at. When there's too much enemy fire on the screen, just use the dodge ability to avoid taking damage. You can even go right through the fire without taking a scratch. You will have to pay attention to where your character is and what's going on around you at all times. Yes, most of this was in the first game, however 3 new additions have been added. First is that you play as either Issa or Kachi, and both have a different playstyle. Issa is manual aiming, while Kachi is automatic. Depending on who you play as gives a slightly different cutscene in the story. It's pointless overall, but a point to make nonetheless. And the charge ability for the character. Issa gets a huge charge blast that feels wonderful when faced with a large group of enemies. Kachi sends off multiple lock-on targets and doesn't have to wait for the meter to fill up all the way. Just remember you can't use it again until the meter has gone back to normal. The last thing, and probably the best new addition, is hovering. You are no longer constricted to the ground, except for most of this level, and the dodge button still works beautifully for getting you out of harm's way. In fact, you use this so much that you actually forget that there is a jump button. Just don't forget there is one, otherwise this stage might become a bit more difficult. When you encounter, yes I said when, not if for a reason, a game over screen because your health reached, you can continue at the last checkpoint you reached. The first game made you earn continues, but here they are infinite. Which is good because health is kind of on the rare side in this game. When you see the first aid kits, grab them! They can restore a small portion or all of your life back. Also in the levels are special medals. You get them if you accomplish certain tasks. However, I haven't seen any hints on how to get them, and if you get a game over then you lose all the ones that you've already acquired. The best I've done was about 5 or 6 on stage 1. Oh, and there are these coins used for increasing your score. Don't worry about collecting them, unless of course you want some big points on your score result at the end of a level for minor bragging rights. The game comes with a leaderboard function for every level and occasion. Normally, I don't pay attention to these things, but the game can be quite addictive, and I haven't seen it get hacked with a score that only has the number 9 in it, so it's actually something I enjoy, but only on the first level. Why? Stage 0 is too easy, and every other level after Stage 1 is incredibly difficult to avoid taking hits while racking up your points. The game has a point system where it multiplies your points the more enemies you shoot down, but once you take a hit, it starts to lower your multiplied bonuses. Of course, this is only interesting to bring up if you plan to go for the leaderboards, as it doesn't have an impact on the rest of the game.
What do we do now?
Now we run like our lives depend on it. Because they do.
Normally I like to talk about any special features the game has, or what it does better or worse than its predecessor before going over what I liked about the game. However, the game is kind of short on length and content, and talking about all that sounds about the same as what I love about the game, so let's cut out the middleman and get to the good stuff. There are tons of enemies to shoot, and aiming with the Wii Remote makes me never want to play with any other controller scheme. Unless of course they make another for the Wii U and 3DS that uses touchscreen to aim, but that's just me being hopeful. Each time you play a level, it feels like your score is always going to be different from the last time you played it. So while the levels always play the same, the experience of always trying to get a better score seems to increase every time I play it. Which might be for the best since there are only 7 stages in the game. 8 if you count Stage 0. I don't. Doesn't sound like much, does it? While the levels themselves can take between maybe 10 minutes to almost an hour to beat, depending on how often you bite the dust, or can take down the gauntlet of bosses. Every level has about 3 to 9 bosses and sub-bosses. Sometimes 4 in a row. You take down 3 of them and then boom, 2 more appear, and you start to think, when does it end? Then the fight starts and you say, I hope it doesn't end! Somehow they cram all these bosses in the game, and they all feel completely different from each other. Some can be shot at all the time, and others have an opening that you have to wait for. However, many of them can be countered with a melee move, which can cause even more damage. Does that make them easy? No! Even if you know when to counter with a melee attack, you still have to get the timing down to a near perfection. This creates a sort of balance between hard but fair and fun boss fights. It's almost hard for me to say which is my favorite because there's so many of them I enjoy obliterating in each stage. There's definitely a handful of annoying bosses, but it's a small price to pay to get to the good ones, usually at the end of the levels. Speaking of levels, all of them look and to an extent play differently from each other. How can linear paths play different? Well, let's look at Stage 3. Here you have to watch out for this chainsaw wall coming at you while taking on enemies from behind, and in the background there's going to be this giant laser that will fire at you. But look at this! I can block that giant laser with this background part! I have to multitask and take advantage of the environment around me. Then, like every level in the game, it changes things up before it gets stale, so now I have to watch out for these giant metal worm-headed thingies. Another good example is Stage 5, where you're either on a hover bike or this alien donkey thing.
Hey, where's my alien donkey?
So the level is faster paced and you can't hover until you get to the final boss of the stage. Because there's so much going on, they capture your full attention while you're playing through a 20-minute plus stage. Sure, you'll definitely want to take a break to rest up, and checkpoints are frequent, but you'll be looking forward to going back to hordes of keepers and workers who can't believe they're getting their butt kicked by just 2 kids.
All this trouble for 2 kids, I tell ya.
Then again, Issa wasn't one of the top-ranking officials for nothing. I also like how he doesn't let anyone put any ideas into his head about Kachi. Heck, this level is actually in your head, and still his only response to those who try to doubt his intuition is to shut up. Oh, by the way, am I the only one who found this funny?
My blood is on fire!
If this doesn't become some kind of internet meme, I don't know what will. Finally, I love how the characters can hover, and have a small but different gameplay style with a charge blast added in, and if you beat the game with one character, you can go back to any stage at any time, and when you beat the game with both characters, you can switch between them. The power of friendship is a cliche, but it's effective.
Hurry, the ship's gonna blow! Jump!
The only real downsides to this game are basically nothing but a couple of nitpicks, but I'm still going to talk about them so you'll be well informed. First of all, the ending. It sucks. There's nothing satisfying about it, and it only lasts for about 15 seconds before the credits start rolling. Second is your melee attacks. If you perform 3 in a row, your character will be vulnerable for a split second. That doesn't sound too bad. Then obviously, you haven't played the game to understand you can't leave yourself open for even that short amount of time. The first game let you melee like crazy, but you were limited to only being on the ground, so I guess there has to be some kind of restriction. And yeah, the game is pretty short, going only about 7 hours minimum, and when it came out for $50, that sounded like quite a lot. But it also came with a 500 Wii Points card, so it was also like getting a free NES game with it. Nowadays, the price has dropped drastically. You can find it new for $20 at GameStop and barely $6 new on Amazon. Please don't deny yourself this amazing title.
End her life. Turn your gun on that demon. You missed me.
Sin and Punishment Star Successor is basically everything that's right in a video game. Easy to pick up and master controls, engaging level designs, excellently made bosses, and if you get tired of going it alone, you can have a second player pick up a Wii Remote and have them help clear your way. Sure, the story feels confusing unless you actually take the time to dive in and understand what's going on, but as long as you don't take it and some of the cheesy moments seriously, you won't even care. If you're a fan of on-rail shooting action games, then this is one not to pass up. A 5 out of 5. It's a great game to add to your collection.
My blood is on fire!
And we're back with more videos that hopefully you've already seen before. There's the one for the 5-year anniversary list, there's the 10 videos I'm most proud of, the first Sin and Punishment game review in case you're curious about the first one, and the video plug for today is the Q review of Xenoblade Chronicles by the Quarter Guy. If you're looking for a good review of this amazing JRPG, then you should check out his video. I don't think I'll be able to go into the history of the game like he did, because I can't top that. So I'll try to cover the other stuff that he wasn't able to. And with that, this video comes to a close. Later, everyone.